Ah, beautiful Scottish weather. Hello there, Stationeers, and welcome to our base on Europa. This is going to be a tutorial about how to set up an advanced furnace, from the very basics all the way up to the actual IC housing. It's going to be step by step, short and clear, I hope. I've been watching a lot of these myself recently. I'm new to the game, and I've noticed a certain trend with the more advanced tutorials that I'm going to try and circumvent today. This steel frame in front of us is going to form the center point of today's tutorial. We're going to be building the furnace into it because the frames in this game are thermally insulated. They have absolutely no exchange of heat with the outside world, and that means we can keep our furnace nice and hot or nice and cold, whatever we need. In order to understand how an advanced furnace works, even if you're not using automation, you need to understand that it's made up of three components: the furnace itself, a heating system, and a cooling system. The heating system can be made up of pretty much anything that's hot. You can burn a bunch of gas, put it in a tank, and then just draw from that as you need. You could use fuel mixture, which is what we're going to do today, or you can just straight up throw in some ice and combust it using the button. You can be completely manual if you want. Similarly, the cooling system needs to use any cold gas, which means probably about under 50 degrees Celsius in this case. That is not a fuel gas, so no oxides, no nitrous, and no volatiles, because if you add those into the furnace with the fuel mixture, you're going to make more heat. In order to build our furnace, here's your shopping list. You are going to need wires, insulated pipes, and chutes in large numbers. You'll need the actual furnace itself, along with one piece of electronic parts to build it, and 5 steel sheets. You're going to need some frames, some sheets to weld them shut, and some regular pipes. You're also going to want volume pumps, a single valve, this is just a one-way, and a passive vent. You're going to need hash display and 2 gas display chips. These are fairly easy to make at the electronics printer. You're going to need 3 consoles, 3 panes of glass, 2 switches, 2 IC housings, 2 IC chips, and then you're going to need the ores that you want to smelt. In my case, got a whole bunch of stuff. This you're also going to require. It is a computer. It is made at the electronics printer. You're going to need to make the IC Editing Motherboard to go inside it. And you'll need to make a spare IC housing and wire it all up so that you can actually program these chips. But let's get started. We're going to need to grab our advanced furnace, and we're going to place it inside the frame so that the console sticks out the front just like that. The majority of the thing should be inside the frame. We're going to seal that in fairly shortly. Then we place in our 1 electronic parts, and using our welder, in this case an arc welder for me, we're going to weld in our 5 steel sheets, finishing the thing off with a screwdriver. Now to give you the 50-cent tour, it's much like the other furnace in that you have a pressure gauge, you have a lever to evacuate the contents, you can read the contents on the screen, you got a button you can use to melt ices. The big difference here is that you have a built-in output volume pump and an input volume pump. You don't have to actually make them. This thing works really well. We're going to be using them in this recipe, but it isn't actually required. Over here, you've got your import on the left, your export on the right, and of course you've got your gas outputs on the top here, liquid output on the bottom, and gas input in the middle. Now that we've got our furnace down, we're going to need to run in our fuel and coolant lines. And before I do that, I'm going to show you my fuel and coolant systems. They're right over here. So they are both exactly the same. They work very similarly. We crush some ice, volatiles, and oxygen, painted so I don't get them mixed up. Those ice crushers run into tanks, one over there, volatiles, oxygen. They get run through a gas mixture, which has a 66 to 34% mixing ratio. You can play around with this. I found this is the best ratio for me. Some people run a little bit less fuel rich. Maybe they go like a 65. Maybe you run a little bit more fuel rich. You go a 67% volatiles. What matters is that you're making H2O. 2 volatiles for every hydrogen. So 66% volatiles, 34% oxygen. Then over here is my coolant loop. All it is a bunch of nitrogen. I'm getting that using the nitrice, but remember that nitrice also contains nitrous now, nitrous oxide, which is very, very, very flammable. So what we're doing is filtering that out. We're taking all the nitrogen, putting it in this tank, and all the nitrous just gets dumped out of this vent. Then since Europa is very, very cold already, we're just running that nitrogen through a cooling loop, just a bunch of radiators to the atmosphere, meaning that anything inside this pipe is going to be a frigid negative 148.1 degrees Celsius. That's a lot of coal. As you can see, the mixture in this pipe is a mixture of volatiles and oxygen. There's a little bit of nitrogen in there because I'm not actually filtering out the nitrogen you get from this ice. But you know what? The way I see it, saves us a bit of fuel. It's a bit of fuller. It doesn't seem to affect the furnace performance too much. Alright, so let's come around the back here and set up our outputs. We're going to start with the waste. I'm going to straight up just vent this to atmosphere. If you want to recapture this gas, you totally can. You can make yourself a little gas processing plant, but for the purposes of this tutorial, and honestly just in life, I'm just going to build a big old chimney. We'll slap a passive vent on it up there, and send it all to Mars. Next up, we're going to need to deal with our inputs, and I'm using regular pipes here because this is going to be inside the frame. It's going to be perfectly sealed. You don't have to worry about wasting perfectly good insulated pipes on this. Those are expensive, man. In this economy, couldn't. So we're going to build a little output like this, and then we're going to attach 2 volume pumps to it. I find life is a little bit easier if you put them in the same direction, so I'm going to do it like this, and then we're going to need to give them a name. We're going to bring in our cold at the top, so let's put this as our coolant pump. There we go, sound official, makes you smarter. And this one will be our fuel pump. And this is just so that when we set it up later, we can find them. And that's pretty much it for the plumbing. We now need to quickly just wire this all together, plug it into power, and then we can run the pipes. Remember to wire in your furnace's data ports and its power ports on this one. Voila, that easy. Now what I'm going to do, just so we don't accidentally start pressurizing this pipe before we want to, I'm going to push all these valves to 0 throughput. Well, this will be changed by the code later. And we're going to turn them on. Because again, once we seal them in, we can't get to them. And believe it or not, that is pretty much all the plumbing you need to do. I'm going to put down a couple more frames. This is going to form the flanks of my build. And we'll put down some frames on top, which are going to make up the chimney. I kind of want the output gas, which is going to be very, very hot, to be very, very far away from me. And we'll put an output vent right over there. Alright, but before we seal things in for good, we're going to need to grab some chutes. The chutes are going to be used to access the input and output of this thing once we've sealed it inside. So we don't want to seal it in just yet because we won't be able to get to it. So there's also no point using windows because, you know, again, you're not really going to see much. I'm going to start off, I'm going to sort of work backwards here. I want my inlet on this side. So we're going to want to face that this way. There we go. And we're going to want our outlet on the other side. Give it a bit of space. Beautiful. And then just run the chutes to the different connectors. And if this site is starting to look familiar to you, well, then you might have seen it before. This comes straight from the Steam Workshops. This is the highest rated guide on how to build an automated furnace. I just haven't seen a video that's of decent length about how to do it, so I figured I'd make that. This is not my invention. This is made by a creator named Barsiel, a genius amongst men. He has created, or they rather, have created some truly fantastic guides on the Steam Workshop, and this one in particular really deserves some love. Alright, but that is our chutes complete. We now need to finish up the last of the plumbing. We're going to grab some of these cheap pipes, because they're right here, and we need to run our coolant and our fuel lines into the back here. Voila, all connected up and feeling good about ourselves. Let's just triple check because once again, once this is sealed, we can't really get back in here. This is our fuel pump connected to our fuel line, confirmed. Our coolant pump connected to our coolant line, confirmed. Alright, and with that, it is time to seal in the flavor. Let's go ahead and get everything a double weld so that it is atmospherically solid. Oh, it's beautiful. Look at it. And looks like we're displacing a bit of air. Bye-bye lighting. Alright, with everything welded up full, we can grab our passive vent. Make sure that this is hooked up before we start pumping this thing full of hot gas. Perfect, that's our chimney. And now we can start on the electronics. Ah, the part you've all been waiting for. Also, go back, go over there. Make this thing look pretty. I worked so hard on this setup. Ah, isn't that better? So much better. Now that we've sealed in everything and we've run all of our plumbing, which really is quite simple once you've got the tank set up, we're going to start setting up our electronics. So this is where things get a little bit more complicated, but pay attention and you'll be fine. Put down my dials, which I have painted green. Yes, you'll notice that now the button, oh, it's beautiful. Look at it. You know what? In fact, I think this might be a bit more exciting if it was, oh, the red button. Yes, and give me a white dial. Oh, much better. Much better. Customize your workspaces, people. Makes you feel ownership over them. Now, very importantly, you need to grab your screwdriver and set the dial to any number above 14. So in my case, I'm going to set it to 15, just so that I have that. And that's because there are, I think, 13 recipes this thing can cycle through, as well as a blank recipe, meaning 14. So you always want one more than that so you can tick over. This will make more sense once we've set it up fully. Then you're going to grab your consoles. You're going to build one just like this, facing to the left. You're going to build 2 console monitors facing up, just like so. And then we're going to feed in our controls. First off, we want the hash display in the small one. And then we want the 2 gas displays in the 2 larger ones. Finally, seal it all off with a nice piece of glass. And my sincerest apologies to you, I did leave out one piece of the puzzle, which you will need to get, which is the data disk. That's going to be part of it. It's going to be part of programming these monitors later. So we'll just put that over there for safekeeping. All right, now we've set up all of that. Let's go ahead and set up our IC housings. We're going to put one of them over here. Again, the placement is completely optional. Whatever you think looks best is what you should go with. And we'll put the other right next to it over there. Yeah, I'm happy. You know, I think I might move that up just for aesthetic purposes. Voila, just like that, everything is set up. Now we can go ahead and configure up our screens. Both of them, as you can see, are currently set to pressure and flashing an error, and our console isn't very happy with us either. One thing I'm going to have to do before we do anything else is rename our IC housings, because we need that to set up the screen. The first one here we'll call the hash IC, like that, hash IC. And this part's a little bit important. The scripter has made some creative spelling choices, and so just pay attention to exactly how you name this one. It's going to be Furnace Control IC. That's a lowercase l followed by capital I, capital C. Alright, so everybody's angry with us. Let's use our data disk to reprogram these. So this one here we'll set up as our pressure reader. Why not? And then we just need to make sure it talks to the advanced furnace. Lovely. Boom, right now no pressure in there, which is exactly what we want to see. And yes, indeed, we have 0 pascals and 0 Kelvin temperature. This one we're going to switch over to temperature mode and tell it to look at the advanced furnace. Lovely, console's set up. For this guy, we stick it in the top. And for the hash display, we want to make sure we connect this to this IC circuit, nothing else. Do not connect it to the advanced furnace, it must go to hash IC. Okay, and now comes the fun. We need to program the IC chips. We're going to stick this thing in here, turn it on so we can program it. Make sure we are selecting the correct IC housing. In this case, this one. You could actually just put them in there and program it from here, as long as it's on the same network. I like to do it a bit more modularly. So we're going to go here, head over to our library, this tab over here, and import the code. This is from the Steam Workshop. There'll be links to everything in the description, including the guide that I learned this from. We're going to click export, and voila, our chip now has 1,366 bytes of data on it. So we're going to stick that in our hash IC housing. We're going to grab the next one, stick them in there. We're going to clear the data. We're going to import the furnace IC code. We're going to export that again. This one should have 4,138 bytes of data. We stick that in there. Job done. Alright, now all that remains is to program the chips, the pins rather, on these circuits. So the circuits themselves can only interact with, I think, up to 6 things at a time, depending on how you set up the pins, right? And we want to make sure that they are talking to the correct stuff. So it's very important that you set up these pins correctly. I'm going to walk you through it. So D0 for the hash IC, which is the one I'll do first, is going to be set to our dial, which is this guy over here. The pin number 2 is going to be set to our button, which is this guy over here. And pin number 3 is going to be set to Furnace Control IC. And that's where I think the name being precise comes into play, but I'm sure someone in the comments has already corrected me on that. Next up, we grab this one, which the D0 is going to be switched to the advanced furnace. This is the one that's actually going to control the fuel pumping. Then we're going to put the coolant pump in here. There we go. And then D3 is going to be our fuel pump, or D2, sorry, is going to be our fuel pump. There we go. D3 is going to be our hash IC, which is the other IC housing, this one over here. And finally, D4 is going to be our dial. Voila! That easy. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, we are done. That's it. This thing is ready to rock. And I'll do a few test burns here, but I just want to prove to you that this is functional. I mean, how cool is that, right? So what we're going to do to finish this off is we're going to turn on all of our bits and pieces, turn on our furnace, and what we'll see is that everything is currently set to 0. The output is set to 50 because it's been told that it's got nothing to do, so it's clearing the pressure. We're now going to use the dial to select the ingots we want to smelt. In fact, why don't we go ahead and make ourselves a nice batch of steel. One of these has the steel collective. There we go. Let's go ahead and make ourselves a nice batch of steel. We're going to press the button, and you'll see the furnace will start pumping in fuel and coolant in the ratios it requires to get the right temperature and pressure we need to make steel. How nifty is this? Alright, and that's almost there, so why don't we go ahead and throw in our ingredients. We're going to just give it a little kick. Boop. Boop. And boop. Oh, put from the wrong one. Doesn't matter. Put that away. And what we'll see is as this processes, it will and this is the best part about this script, I think, is it actually auto ejects your mold. meaning that you can kind of just run stuff through here constantly, and it will just keep feeding it. You could run it into a sorting system, kind of like the one we've got over there. If you'd like to see how I built the rest of this base, by the way, check out the playlist. It'll be in the description. But voila, there's our steel. It's that easy. Okay, but you don't believe me. You say, largely unemployed. Anyone can make steel. Any chump could make steel if he wanted to. Why don't you make something that a real gamer would make? And, you know, to that I say, you're on, baby. Let's make some Constantan. So if we look up our wiki, we go to, this is F1, by the way, if you didn't know. We're going to go to Constantan. We want to get copper and nickel. Alrighty. I have copper. I don't think I have nickel in these boxes. Oh, I do have nickel in these boxes. Perfect. So let's make a double batch of Constantan. We're going to throw one in there. Throw another one in there. And by the way, you can, of course, click pressure. Let's make that happen. And then we want to get some copper, which is going to be this one. Boom. And boom. Making a double stack here. And let's see what it produces. So Constantan requires a pressure between 20 and 100 megapascals and a temperature over 1K. Well, looks like we've got both of those. And well, would you believe it? Looks like we've got some damn Constantan. Alright, but you say largely unemployed, anybody can make tier 1 alloys. That's like baby stuff. Why don't you make something really hard, like Inconel? Fine. We click the button. We prepare the furnace for Inconel. In fact, you know what? Take me to ingots, take me to Inconel. We need a pressure between 23.5 and 24 megapascals. That's a really tight range. And a fairly low temperature for this furnace, 600 Kelvin. We'll need gold, steel, and nickel. So 100 gold, 50 steel, 50 nickel is the ratio we'll need. Alright, you know what I've decided? I've decided we're going bigger. We're going 200 gold, 100 steel, 100 nickel. So throw that in there. Alright, cool. We're cooking it up now. And as you can see, because the ratios are wrong, and it won't actually produce the ingot we're looking for right away, what's instead going to happen is that it's going to continue processing until it finds the amount it's looking for, and then as soon as the trigger is ready, boom, it spits it out. So if you want to do larger batches, because you can't set quantities with this script, then just put in all ingredients of one type at a time until you've got what you're looking for, which in this case, bada bing, bada boom, is 100 grams of beautiful, shiny, yellow Inconel. Now, one thing I have noticed from the comments is that this script does struggle a bit with Stellite, which is one of the more complicated ingots to make. It's on value 11, I think. There it is, Stellite. Now, the reason this one is so difficult to make is because you require an insanely high pressure at an insanely high temperature at fairly low pressures. It's quite challenging to make. What we're going to do is turn off the script, right? We're going to manually pump out a whole bunch of gas. In fact, we're going to completely vacuum this thing out. Bye-bye to all of my beautiful furnace fume. I will miss you. Alright, cool. Now that our temperature and pressure are at 0, we can go ahead and pump out let's turn off our output. And what we're going to do is just manually cycle this thing, just like you would a normal furnace. To do a complete burn, we're going to do half a stack of volatiles, 25 in total. And we're just going to click the button until they all pump. And remember, you must turn off your IC housings or it's going to vent all of this. Okay, we have 1.2 megapascals, and that sniz is cold. Then we're going to want to put in half stack of oxide, which in this case will be 13, okay? No more, no less, or you're going to blow this thing up. And voila, we'll see that the pressure and temperature are going to explode. And we're currently at the temperature we need to make Stellite. So let's put the ingredients in. Okay, here we go. Final piece of the puzzle. We might have to do the smelt again. That's completely okay if we do. Let's see if this will make it. I think it won't because our pressure is too high and I think our temperature has dropped. Yep, our temperature has dropped below the threshold, but that's okay. Alright, but with our products smelted, it took too long to do this. So now we need to completely vacuum out the chamber and just do it again. That way, that's kind of the only way you can reliably get to the temperature without hitting the same pressure. Pretty much empty, so let's use this opportunity to smelt up the second batch. Once again, we're going to go with some oxides, 13 to about 25. And we'll just split up until we have enough. There we go. So we should see the temperature and pressure skyrocket again. We're just going to have to activate a few times, I think. There we go. Oh my god, it's exploding. Quite literally. And boom, we have the temperature. So now we just need to vent until we can get the pressure low enough to pull the lever. Oh, come on. We just got to dip below 20 for a second. Boom. We're making Stellite. Pop it out. Hey, there it is. And so, as you can see, you could use these readouts to manually make ingots that you think the script is struggling to make. And so there you have it. That is how you can create and use an advanced furnace in Stationeers. One of many, many ways to go about doing this. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you enjoyed it, please sub for more. This is the first time I have run out of power, and also the first time I've made a Stationeers tutorial. So let me know what I did wrong, let me know what I did right, let me know what you would like to see next time. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.